passage I want to present to you. On April 30th, 1789, around noon, Frederick Muhlenberg stepped onto the first floor balcony on New York's City Hall. The crowd gathered below on Wall Street erupted into immediate cheers. Thousands had assembled to witness this special occasion, the inauguration of the first President of the United States of America. The weather was mild but cloudy, the sun would come out only later in the afternoon. Muhlenberg, a middle-sized man with a rounded figure, looked for a good spot on the balcony. Other dignitaries pressed in from behind until a total of 17 men stood out in the open air. All of them gathered around the man for whom everyone had come, President-elect George Washington. Muhlenberg himself had already been in office for a month, since he was elected the first Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. The Americans had borrowed the position from the English motherland, where it existed since the 14th century and had become a largely bipartisan office during the 18th century. How the Speaker should carry out his duties, however, was not precisely defined. The Constitution only specified that he should be elected by the House of Representatives. In general, it was believed that things would work themselves out. All was uncharted territory. Hardly a day passes, wrote Virginia's delegate James Madison to a friend, without strikingly clear manifestations of the delays and confusions that arise solely from the lack of precedent. There were no organized political parties in the modern sense. Washington had been chosen in a kind of gentleman's agreement. There simply was no viable alternative to him. He had been unanimously elected with 69 out of 69 possible electoral votes. Subsequently, the Congress had convened in New York to certify Washington's election. However, it had taken nearly a month for both chambers to finally reach a quorum. Most representatives had not been as disciplined as Frederick Muhlenberg, who had arrived with German punctuality as early as March 3rd. On April 1st, the House of Representatives finally convened and elected Frederick as its Speaker with the first vote, giving him 23 out of 30 votes. He was the most popular candidate from Pennsylvania and had received the most votes of all candidates there in the congressional elections, 8,726. Meanwhile, on the City Hall balcony, George Washington had taken his place at the front of the balustrade. Towering over most of the men around him, with his extraordinary height of 6 feet 2 inches, he stood prominently between the central two of the four imposing columns. They had been adorned with banners in red, white, and blue, and decorated with the image of a bald eagle, which had been used as the United States national emblem since 1782. Even though Benjamin Franklin considered the praying bird to have a bad moral character. Washington wore matching silver eagle buttons on his suit jacket that was made of brown Connecticut broadcloth. This choice of fabric suggested a sense of normalcy in contrast to the fine English fabrics that the plantation owner usually wore. Only his knee-length stockings were made of white silk. His hair was fashionably powdered and curled under his hat. With his left hand on the Bible and his right hand raised, Washington took the oath of office from Robert Livingston, New York's Chief Justice. The Bible had been hastily obtained from a nearby Freemasons' lodge and placed on a red cushion. It was all somewhat improvised. No one had thought to select an appropriate Bible passage either, so someone had randomly opened it at Genesis chapter 49. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for a haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. This all made little sense, just like the preceding verse, his eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Washington's eyes were gray-blue, and his notoriously bad teeth had been mostly pulled and replaced with poorly fitting dentures made of animal teeth and ivory, as well as teeth pulled from his own slaves. It was a shame about the Bible passage, really. Frederick could have easily come up with a more appropriate one, but it seemed that no one had bothered to ask the German pastor's son. "Long live George Washington, President of the United States," exclaimed Livingston, and the crowd cheered once more. Washington bowed silently. With this, the public part of the ceremony was over. The President delivered his inauguration speech inside in the Senate chamber to the members of Congress. He appeared nervous and spoke softly. Fortunately, he had not chosen his initial draft of over 70 pages, but instead opted for the much shorter 500-word alternative. Washington confessed right at the outset that no event could have filled him with greater anxieties than his being elected president. His address contained no political program. He rather stressed the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government. In his closing remarks, Washington paid tribute to